Recording in progress.
Good? Okay. Good evening, everyone. I would like to call the regular meeting of the Milton City Council from Monday, September 18th, 2023 to order. The city strongly recommends that you review tonight's agenda carefully, and if you wish to speak on any item on the agenda, then please bring your comment cards to the clerk as soon as possible. While the Milton rules allow a speaker to turn in their comment card up until the clerk calls the agenda item, once the agenda item is called, no more comment cards can be accepted. Will the city clerk please call the roll and make general announcements?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be happy to call roll for the September 18th, 2023 regular council meeting. I would like to remind those in attendance to please silence all cell phones at this time. Those attending the meeting who would like to make a public comment, you are required to complete a public comment card prior to speaking on the item. All speakers will identify yourselves by name, address, and organization before beginning your comment. Any public comment cards received after the item has been called will not be accepted. If you are representing an organization, an affidavit is required stating you have the authority to speak on behalf of that organization. Please review tonight's agenda, and if you would like to make a comment, please bring your comment cards to me now. Demonstration of any sort within the chamber is prohibited. Please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, outburst, or dialogue with any person speaking. Anyone in violation will be asked to leave. As I call roll this evening, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Peyton Jamison.
Here.
Councilmember Andrea Veerhoff. Here. Councilmember Paul Moore.
Here.
Councilmember Juliet Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Carol Cookerly.
Here.
Councilmember Jan Jacobus.
Present.
And Councilmember Rick Morg.
Here.
Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next is the approval of the meeting agenda. I would like to add an executive session to discuss land acquisition, personnel, and potential litigation. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we accept the meeting with the changes that you have requested.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Moore and a second from Councilmember Verhoff to approve the meeting agenda as amended. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, next is public comment. Do we have any general public comment?
We do, Mayor. We have one.
Okay, we'll read off the public comment. Public comment is a time for citizens to share information with the mayor and the city council and to provide input and opinions on any matter that is not scheduled for its own public hearing during today's meeting. Each citizen who chooses to participate in public comment must complete a comment card and submit it to the city clerk prior to the agenda item being called. Please remember this is not a time to engage the mayor or members of the city council in conversation. When your name is called, please come forward and speak into the microphone stating your name and address for the record. You will have 5 minutes for remarks. The city encourages you to review the agenda, and if you wish to speak, to bring your comment cards to the city clerk right now. If you'll please call the first public comment.
I'd like to invite Mr. Adam Hollingsworth to the podium, please.
Good evening. My name is Adam Hollingsworth. I live at 1475 Rolling Links Drive here in Milton. Mayor, city council members, the integrity of Milton's elections are at risk. Despite the incredible work of Steve Krokoff acting as election superintendent, our elections have become the fruit of a poisonous tree. Even if our election is administered flawlessly, public faith and trust in the process has been lost. It is now abundantly clear that one member of the city council has established a pattern and a practice of attempting to meddle in and influence his own election. He's violated the city charter, inappropriately issued directives to city staff, improperly influenced a hiring decision, wasted city resources to run down an asserted computer hack that did not happen. This behavior is so pervasive that it's simply time for the city council member to step aside, to preserve the integrity of our elections and allow his legacy to be that of his service to Milton since its inception, not the incredulous events of the past few months. Let's take a look at the facts. A committee was formed to examine the transition to a city-run election. The committee met in private multiple times and the public had no chance to participate. The September 12th, 2022 edition of the Milton Herald said, quote, an open records request filed with the city on August 31st turned up emails indicating there were a dozen meetings before the committee was formalized. No announcement or advertisement of informal meetings could be located. Steve Krokoff, Milton election superintendent and city manager, has said the following about this committee. He was concerned about the committee's composition. He was concerned about what appeared to be pre-baked conclusions by the committee. He was concerned about the inability of city staff to be heard. He was concerned about a reluctance of the committee to provide an unbiased assessment to the council. Despite the best efforts of several on this council, the Elections Committee prevailed in prohibiting a polling place in one of 3 of Milton's city council districts, a decision reversed only after enormous public pressure. A member of this body put pressure on your city manager to hire an elections consultant, despite the fact that she did not meet the requirements of the job. About the hiring of that consultant, this council member said, "I think we need to stand firm and need more of council with us." He said, "I'm having a trust issue with some staff at this point." I don't think I have to tell you how inappropriate it is for a city council member to pressure your city manager into making a staff hiring decision. We've also learned that a member of the city council used the force of his position to direct city staff to remove campaign signs of his political opponent. About this, your city manager said that such communications are seen as, quote, directives and could be, quote, misconstrued as an attempt to use governmental authority to suppress a political opponent. As you know, such communication with city staff by a member of the city council is a violation of the city's charter. Most recently, we've learned of a private meeting between a member of the city council running for re-election and certain local election poll workers and tabulators. We learned this because that council member sent an email meeting request to each of you. The council member subsequently claimed that his email system had been hacked, a notion that was debunked by your city manager after work was completed by your city IT department. On September 13th, Mr. Krockoff said, quote, "There is no evidence of a breach of our system." That same council member was asked repeatedly by a fellow member of this body if such a meeting had occurred. Because if it did, a hack is highly unlikely, as it strains credibility to assert that a hacker would break into the city's email system only to send an accurate email invitation. I share all of this at some personal risk, but the risk I'm taking pales in comparison to the risks some of you have taken. At your July 24th meeting, one of you said there have been encumbrances on the way to a fair election, and that council member instantly became a political target and drew an election opponent. The mayor called the actions of this same council member, quote, highly inappropriate. His target was much more personal. His life and that of his family was threatened. Thank you to those of you who've taken courageous stands. But there is only one immediate solution. It's time for this city council member responsible for inappropriate actions to step aside and resign, thus ensuring the integrity of Milton, the city council, and the upcoming election. And should he not, the voters of Milton and this city council should take a hard look if we should perpetuate the tenure of an elected official who prioritizes his own interests while ignoring the very principles of ethical government, someone who has put himself above the citizens. Thank you for your time.
Do we have any other public comment?
We do
All right,
not, sir.
thank you. All right, we will move on to consent agenda. Will the city clerk please sound the items?
The first item is approval of the September 6, 2023 regular city council meeting minutes, agenda item number 23245. Item B is approval of change order number 1 to the service agreement between the City of Milton and ClearGov, Inc. for access to the ClearGov platform, capital budgeting, transparency, and ClearPlan modules. Agenda item number 23246. Next is approval of Comcast Enterprise Services sales order form between the City of Milton and Comcast Cable Communications Management, LLC, for installation of internet and network connectivity services at all municipal locations. Agenda item number 23247. D is approval of change order number 1 to the swimming pool management agreement with Dynamo Pool Management, Inc. to provide pool operations and lifeguard services at the Milton City Park and Preserve Pool. Agenda item number 23248. E is approval of an MSA and statement of work for file server to SharePoint online migration services between the City of Milton and Inkworks, Inc., doing business as Inkworks Consulting. Agenda item number 23249. F is approval of task order number 1 between the City of Milton and Moffett and Nickel, Inc. for professional engineering services for the trail, drainage, and habitat enhancement project at the Milton City Park and Preserve. Agenda item number 23250. G, approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Milton and Practical Designs Partners, LLC, for design engineering for multi-use trail connections along Crabapple Road. Agenda item number 23251. H is approval of subdivision plats and revisions. The first development is Ewing at 13970 and 13974 Freemanville Road. It's land lot 813, District 2, Section 2. It is a minor plat to combine Lot 2 and Lot 3 into one lot, now known as Lot 2, for a total of 3.243 acres. The full development is 4.357 acres with a density of 0.46 lots per acre. Development 2 is Milton Meadows at 13040 Arnold Mill Road, land lot 1070, District 2, Section 2, a minor plat to subdivide the parcel into 3 lots ranging in size from 2.259 acres to 5.295 acres, a total of 9.814 acres and a density of 0.31 lots per acre. Agenda item number 23252. Our final consent agenda item I is approval of the financial statements and investment report for period 11 August 2023. Agenda item number 23253. Mayor Jameson.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda item number 23-253.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Cookerly and a second from Councilmember Moore to approve the consent agenda as read. All in favor, please say aye.
Mayor,
Oh,
Point of
sorry, I got
clarification,
you fast.
the way Councilmember Cookerly read the motion, she referenced the
Only one
last.
item.
Oh, I didn't mean to. Okay, Mr. Mayor.
What did you reference?
I just used the last
It's
number
just the
on there.
consent
Oh,
agenda.
I approve the consent agenda as read.
Okay.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Cookerly and a second from Councilmember Moore to approve the consent agenda as read. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. We'll move on to reports and presentations. Will the city clerk please sound the items?
Mayor, that item is a proclamation recognizing National Voter Registration Day. Mayor?
Great. Thank you, Madam Clerk. This is a big day, I guess, in Milton, Voter Registration Day. As you know, we've embarked on our own municipal election with a lot of hard work from staff and volunteers, and we're hoping to get it through the finish line. Thank you, Ms. Tammy, Steve, and Stacy, and everyone else involved, including all the citizens. So I will read this proclamation, and then we'll stand for a picture. This is whereas voting is fundamental to American democracy, empowering citizens to officially share their views and spur critical actions that impact our government, laws, and society. And whereas all eligible people should know they have the ability and opportunity to vote, as well as the knowledge about how to do so. And whereas this is why voter registration is so vital as a first step toward exercising this essential American right while promoting civic responsibility, inclusivity, and fair representation for all residents. And whereas this Tuesday is National Voter Registration Day, a nonpartisan effort to promote awareness and share information about the process so that citizens can register properly and efficiently. And whereas October 10th marks the final day a person can register to vote in order to participate in Milton's general municipal elections, which start with in-person voting on October 16th and can culminate on Election Day, which is November 7th. And whereas people can learn about these upcoming elections, including how to register to vote, online at miltonga.gov/elections. And whereas the city of Milton hopes our community participates in these elections and in doing shows our democracy at its best. Now, therefore, we, the mayor and city council of the city of Milton, proclaim September 19th to be National Voter Registration Day in Milton, and we encourage eligible residents to both register to vote as well as cast ballots during advance voting or on Election Day in Milton's upcoming municipal election. And this is given under my hand and seal of the city of Milton, Georgia, on this 18th day of September 2023. And I would like to ask, if you don't mind, Tammy, we take a picture with us and Steve, and I don't know if there's anybody. Stacy's gone, so.
Stacy's on vacation.
Okay.
Mayor, just so you all know, we are, I just got the final proof from our communications committee for a leaflet that's going to go out with all of the tax bills, providing all the information regarding voting dates, locations, advanced voting, election day voting. Again, put together by our communications committee. So very exciting to get that out there.
Cool. Thank you.
Good. And it's with the tax bill. How uplifting.
Funny, I also want to say, when Madam Cheney Clerk signed up to be our city clerk, municipal elections wasn't on the agenda, so she's done a fantastic job. Or for our election superintendent. So.
Want to be real quick. 1 second. This one is probably better. 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Thank you.
Is that yours?
Okay, will the city clerk please stay on the next item?
Mayor, that next item is the presentation of the Windward Parkway Highway 9 Strategic Master Plan. Our Economic Engagement Manager, Ms. Anita Jupin.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I am pleased to introduce Darren Meyer with MKSK. MKSK is a highly reputable firm in the field of urban planning and development. And tonight, Darren will be presenting an overview of the Highway 9 Windward Parkway Strategic Master Plan. This plan is currently underway with our partners with the City of Alpharetta and the North Fulton CID, soon to be known as True North 400. Our partners Darren, Ben, Luis, and Matt with MKSK all bring a wealth of experience and expertise in crafting forward-thinking plans to benefit Milton's Highway 9 Deerfield District. Their innovative approach, commitment to enhancing the city's potential for economic investment, and their deep understanding and respect of Milton's core values make them an ideal partner for this project. So with that, I will turn it over to Darren.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. It's great to be here this evening to share an update on this community-based planning process. As Ms. Jupin mentioned, this is a joint effort with the City of Alpharetta and North Fulton CID. And this is important for the City of Milton because the area that we're focusing on is a major employment center for the city. It's an important part of the commercial tax base, and it's an important part of people's daily lives coming to shop and for daily services. We have 4 major tasks as part of this plan, and you can see on the schedule on the bottom of this where we sit now. Our first task was involved getting into some of the data, understanding the existing conditions, the dynamics of this study area. We also met with a steering committee and had our initial community kickoff meeting. From that, we started to move into some economic and real estate market analysis, and we are in the process now of taking some of that foundational information and beginning to think about how that might take shape in terms of recommendations for policy, placemaking, other tools that can be used throughout the corridor to help make it more economically competitive and improve the quality of life for the City of Milton. I wanted to share with you a few key takeaways from some of our initial engagement with the community. In our first community open house, we had a number of residents that lived in the study area. As we move through the process and we have some additional community engagement, we're looking forward to expanding the group of participants as broadly as we can to help gain additional insight into this. But we did have some great engagement with the community as part of this process. A few of the things that we heard, you can see on the exhibit here in terms of what are some of the strengths of the district that we're looking at. Some of that has to do with the natural areas that you see on the east side of 400, on the west side of 400, the convenience and the shopping that can be taken care of in that district. You see some of those same areas in terms of where we heard comments about some shortcomings and things that the community would like to improve. And largely that has to do with mobility and being able to get through the district comfortably and safely. We also issued a survey to employees in the district through their employers. And we had over 800 responses. We had a very strong response, and we wanted to share with you a little bit of the highlights from that as well. Nearly 90% of the respondents to that survey work within the study area. You can see the zip codes that were predominantly represented, although 41 different zip codes of employees that replied to the survey were represented in this, showing the great breadth of people that commute to and take part of this district. We did want to get an understanding of the working arrangements. Since COVID-19, one of the downstream effects that we've seen is sort of a mixed bag in terms of how employers are working with their employees in terms of being on-site, being remote, or having a hybrid working scenario. And you can see that hybrid right now is the predominant arrangement that we saw in our responses. Secondarily, on-site, there's a fairly small percentage of respondents to this survey that were fully remote. And we did talk in that survey about what are some of those things that we could do within the district that would help appeal to employees and bring them back into the office. And you can see that a substantial percentage of those respondents were interested in things like how we address the built environment with trails, connectivity, the ability to move through the district, places to have lunch, places to go after work. So those were some of the key things that emerged. And you can see a little bit more detail on that in this slide, where nearly 3/4 of the respondents do use the area for lunch over the workday. You can see that when it comes to after work, the evening, getting dinner or having drinks, that starts to get split between places like Avalon, some within the study area, downtown Alpharetta, and other choices. The last piece that I wanted to share with you from the survey had to do with where these respondents would like for us to focus our effort. You can see that the top one had to do with mobility. Again, looking at things like sidewalks, trails, safe streets, the ability to move around comfortably through the district. And you can see that very close alignment in the second one with the community workshop that we had in terms of the importance of parks and green space as well. A few observations that we made as we started to work through the study area. This shows the general land use within the study area where we're focusing. So you can see there's a significant commercial component in the red color there, particularly south of Webb Road along the Windward Parkway corridor itself. You can see as you start to move north along Highway 9, north of Webb Road, you see in yellow more of the residential and a little bit of institutional use in the district as well. At the top of the discussion, I mentioned the importance of this as an employment center, and you can see that both for the city of Alpharetta and the city of Milton, there are major employers that are located within this district that are an important part of the tax base for the community and an important community member themselves. There's some unique natural features within this district. Of course, the Big Creek and its tributaries work their way to the west under 400 into this district and create some really beautiful areas within the floodplain and along these streams and tributaries, which we want to be able to capture and take advantage of in terms of providing some great amenities for the community where possible. And related to that, we also looked at park space. One note on this diagram, the green area that you see isn't the size of the park, but it's about a 10-minute walk shed around those parks that we've identified. So you can see, even though these are around the perimeter of the district, there's a substantial geography in here where those residents and employees that are within this district don't have a tremendous amount of park space there in the core. And then the last piece of kind of our data gathering and data analysis had to do with looking at the real estate market. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to look at that with an eye towards how we create a strategy that allows the city of Milton to think about what is coming down the road. How do we look around the corner, understand what the real estate market is shifting towards? What are those transitions? How do we adapt and understand that? How do we think about suburban office? You know, when we talked about COVID-19 and the amount of utilization of the office space, there's been quite a bit of shift over the past couple of years in that sector of the real estate market. And so how we understand that. And then lastly, how do we connect these destinations within the district? So I want to share with you 3 slides, one related to each of those. So with respect to office, one of the things that we have seen a trend nationally, and as we started to gather some data locally, is that there is quite a bit of optimism about return to work for many employees, but there are some trends with smaller leases in terms of the amount of square footage. Also, the length of those leases tends to vary. So how do we get creative with working with our employers and helping create an environment not just of the building and the immediate surrounds, but the district around it and how they can connect to amenities, which would help attract those employees back to the office. From a retail standpoint, one of the things that we wanted to think about within this district is how we create that quality retail that creates that experience that is really a draw for the district. So on the one hand, you have great convenience for your daily needs and daily services in the district, but how do we look at things like the restaurants, the food and beverage, the types of stores, particularly local businesses and small businesses, and really create something that's authentic and unique and a draw for the local community. And then lastly, with housing, housing is an important component of thinking about the future of the Milton community, if for no other reason than it is a tremendously popular and wonderful place to live. There's going to be continued demand for folks that want to move and live in this community. It is one of the chief struggles, I would say, of elected officials and staff and others, and working with that balance, how we preserve our heritage, the character of the place that we have, while accommodating that future growth. So that's going to be one of the key areas that we study as part of this, as well as how do we look at housing? How is it integrated into this study area in the Deerfield district? And what form does that take? And how does that relate to the broader dynamics within the community and the vision for the community set forth in your comprehensive plan and other planning documents? So to wrap up, there are 5 key takeaways based on our initial work that we've done to date. One has to do with the importance of mobility in the area. And when we talk about mobility, we're really thinking about alternatives to the car. So how can we avoid hopping in our car and navigating traffic on busy arterials? How can we do that safely by bike or by foot and move through the district? The second one is looking again at those authentic experiences that are unique to Milton, not something that you can have in the community next door, but something that's really specific to this area and is a draw and exciting for local residents. The need for additional parks and open space, we looked particularly in this district, how there's a little bit of lack of that green space. There's an awful lot of asphalt in the corridor that we're studying, and how can we increase that? Thinking about major roadways sort of in 2 modes. One is that they're really important for the predominant way that we move through the district by car, but also thinking about how we can get across those major arterials. And then overall, thinking about how the quality of built environment, not just for the employers, as we've noted on here, but also for the residents and for the community as a whole, how we can create amenities that serve both of those groups effectively and successfully. So in terms of next steps, we're going to start again to take some of this foundational information, think about some recommendations to share with this body and with the public. We have a next steering committee meeting that is scheduled in October. And on the heels of that, we will be meeting again with the community in November to start to share some of our initial findings, our initial ideas, see if we're on the right arc and right trajectory for the work that we're doing, take that feedback, refine it, and then at the end of the process, we'll come forward with some concrete recommendations based on what we've heard from the community for this body to take action on. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments?
Council questions? No, we saw you earlier today, so
Yeah.
we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, City Clerk, please stay on the next item.
Mayor, that next item is the police strategic plan update. Our police chief, Chief Austin. That's a lot of chiefs.
Easy for you to say, right? Greetings, Mayor, members of council. Tonight, I'd like to update you on the city's strategic plan, the police department portion of that. So the police portion of our city's strategic plan, our 2021 to 2025 strategic plan, falls under strategic priority number 1, which is to ensure Milton's sustainability and resiliency. Under this strategic priority, the Milton Police Department has significant roles in 2 goals, goals 4 and 5. Goal 4 is to maintain a secure community in which to live, work, and play. And goal 5, implement a transportation infrastructure that meets current needs, accounts for future growth, and allows residents to traverse Milton in a calm, safe, and efficient manner. So within this, we have several of these outcome measures. So the first one is to improve response times to emergency calls in all zones by 10% by the end of the plan. And of course, that's relative to 2021. Ongoing initiative here. It's been affected significantly by road construction and our staffing. But fortunately, recently, the department worked through a plan to enhance our staffing levels through a robust recruiting effort, which has worked quite well. We are actually up to staff right now with all positions filled. So we're very happy to get some of those folks out of their training phase and looking forward to getting them out on the road. Some of our major construction has also concluded that was impeding some crosstown travel. And we do realize this is going to be an ongoing challenge as the city continues to grow. However, even with these challenges last year, response times were reduced by 4% in comparison to the previous year. Our next outcome measure, develop and deploy annual scenario-based de-escalation and crisis intervention training for all Milton police officers by December 31st, 2022. This outcome measure has been completed and was fueled by a grant from the Georgia Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. We were able to purchase a firearm simulator and also train our officers in some police-specific Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And this form of martial art helps our officers to be able to use grappling techniques rather than strikes. So if they do get into a situation where de-escalation, verbal de-escalation does not work, then they can transition to some of these Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu techniques that they've learned to reduce both injuries to suspects and to the officers. And this training is ongoing. As we hire new staff, they'll be going through this training as well. Our next outcome measure is establish a functional safety crisis intervention team with 100% CIT trained staff by December 31st, 2023. This has also been completed. All Milton police officers have completed this crisis intervention training, which is a national training that helps officers deal with those that are in mental crisis. New officers will also receive this training as part of their initial Milton-specific training after they've met their state certification requirements. The next outcome measure, identify several police officers per shift for advanced training on crisis response and mental health services by December 31st, 2023. So this is sort of akin to the last goal, the last slide. This training was a bit of a challenge to find because we're at such a pretty high level anyway in how we have trained our officers in this area. However, we just found some training that we think will work very well. In December, the department's training lieutenant and another lieutenant who is a master instructor will be attending a Train the Trainer class in this nationally recognized course called Integrating Communications and Tactics. And this course is offered by the Police Executive Research Forum, who is known throughout our industry for just impeccable training and other studies related to policing. It's been successful in jurisdictions nationwide, so we're very excited to bring this training to Milton. Our next outcome measure, create a joint fire police task force and conduct initial drill or training by the end of this plan. This too has been completed and is ongoing. The police and fire departments conducted a large-scale active assailant response training at a local school last year. The command staff of both departments will serve as the task force for this group. We will conduct these large-scale trainings biannually with refreshers in between. The next outcome measure, achieve a 5% year-over-year decrease in vehicular-related property damage crashes using 2021 as a baseline, given abnormally reduced traffic in 2020 due to COVID-19. So our police department continues to work on several crash reduction strategies, including targeted enforcement. That includes both geography, so if we're getting traffic complaints or we have high crash zones, we ensure that our officers there in an intelligent-led manner. And also we target offenses as well. As you can see one picture there, the cell phone usage, one of the larger ones, which we know contributes to attention-related crashes. We're also adding additional members to our traffic team now that we're up to staff. We're leveraging social media and classroom educational opportunities, and those are particularly going to some of our younger citizens. Our 16 to 24-year-old age group, we see them consistently overrepresented in crashes. So we have training targeted specifically for that age group. And of course, we have our enforcement activity, which is ongoing. This continues to be a challenge as construction has increased. We see crashes go up in those construction zones, as well as certainly traffic volume throughout the city. And currently I've been working with Public Works and our engineering folks to perhaps even look for a better metric than just year-over-year increases, because we know traffic's increasing and so many other factors are coming in. So look for something in the future that might focus a bit more on our thoroughfares and our high crash corridors. A comparison of 2021 to 2022 crash data shows increases in both personal injury and property damage crashes, and we're currently up 37 crashes, or about 10% year-to-date from this time last year. And the next one is to complete a local road safety plan with executable strategies by December 31st, 2021. This, as you know, has been completed and strategy implementation is underway, and progress reports will be presented throughout the life of the plan. And with that, are there any questions?
Any questions for Chief? No? Thanks. Great job, Chief. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good update. Thank you.
Okay, there are no first presentation items. We'll move on to the public hearing. Will the city clerk please sound the items?
Mayor, that item is consideration of an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Milton, Georgia, to adopt the fiscal 2024 budget for each fund of the city of Milton, Georgia, appropriating the several items of revenue appropriations, prohibiting expenditures to exceed appropriations, and prohibiting expenditures to exceed actual funding available. It is agenda item number 23240. Our Deputy City Manager, Ms. Bernadette Harville.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We are here this evening for our second public hearing related to the proposed budget for fiscal year 2024, which will cover revenue collections and anticipated expenditures from October 1st, 2023 to September 30th, 2024. Staff engaged council throughout the spring and summer on a series of feedback sessions, which were directly incorporated into this proposed budget. Additionally, staff presented the draft budget in detail at the work session on August 14th, including all new initiatives, continuing operations, and market adjustment to salaries. We also held an initial public hearing on Wednesday, September 6th, 2023, which included a review of any changes made between the August work session and that evening's public hearing. There have been no changes made to the proposed budget since the hearing on the 6th, so tonight we will just go over a general overview, review the general fund highlights, and all new initiatives for the coming year. Before you, we have the consolidated budget summary, which includes all budgeted funds as well as those carrying a fund balance. We have the general fund, which accounts for all operating activity that is not required to be separated out into a separate special revenue fund or capital projects fund. We have 6 special revenue funds, which are required to account for specific revenue sources and their corresponding spending activity, as well as 6 capital projects funds, which account for capital-related projects and purchases. The citywide budget, including budgeted spending across all funds, is $58.3 million. Please keep in mind that all capital projects funds are budgeted on a project length basis, and any unspent funds will carry over into the next fiscal year as part of the city's capital improvement plan. And just a reminder that all budgeted requests must tie back into the city's planning process as outlined in each year's budget book. Each plan that guides spending requests has received public input and has been adopted by council. We have plans including the 5-year strategic plan, the comprehensive plan, and its short-term work program, other community development planning documents, transportation plans, the local road safety plan, pavement and stormwater plans, the T-SPOS project list, the trail prioritization plan, other parks and recreation master plans, department-specific strategic plans, and more. Before you is the proposed general fund budget summary. You can see actual earnings and spending activity for fiscal year 21 and 22, as well as the updated amended budget for fiscal year 2023. The 2023 figures include all of the amendments proposed at the September 6th public hearing, and we'll go over those one more time this evening. And the overall revenue forecast for fiscal year 2024 equals $42,843,765, with ongoing revenues increasing by $1.5 million, or 3.6% from fiscal year 2023's amended budget, and total revenues increasing by $392,565, or 0.9% when taking one-time transfers into consideration.
Continuing operations, excluding the 1% required contingency and new initiatives, have increased by 3.9% compared to fiscal year 2023's amended budget. A key component of this increase is the requested 4.7% market adjustment to salaries that was based on the state and local government figures reported in the March 2023 Employment Cost Index put out by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. This approach was discussed at length by Deputy City Manager Inglis during the presentations on the new employee performance management system. The overall impact of those adjustments, including the impact of salary-dependent benefit calculations, is $732,180 across all staff, of which $628,157, or 86%, is attributable to salaries and wages. When taking contingency and new maintenance and operating initiatives into consideration, the year-over-year variance is $2,454,293, or 8%. And at the bottom of the summary, you will see the final projected fund balance at $11,120,863, which is in line with our required reserve policy of 25% of the subsequent year's revenues. Before you is the summary of the maintenance and operating initiatives prepared by staff. The first two are those multi-departmental requests that we have for the retiree health benefit and performance management system incentives that we spoke about. We have a request for a part-time position shared with the City of Alpharetta for a court administrative assistant. In police, staff is requesting a community outreach school liaison officer, which would be 1 full-time employee, 2 sergeants, as well as a tethered unmanned aircraft system. In Public Works, there's a request for $35,000 for the recycling and solid waste management plan. And finally, we have in community development the software for commercial real estate availability. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Those are the new initiatives in addition to the continuing operations we just went over. Okay. Here we have some of the new initiatives across the capital projects funds. The first is for 1 full-time project inspector. This will be covered by T-SPLOST funding, and no operating funds will go towards this position. If T-SPLOST 3 were not to become a reality, staff will bring forth that request into consideration if it were to continue. Here we have the capital initiatives for 2024, including vehicles for those new police positions, as well as an asset management software coming out of the Public Works Department, security upgrades to the cameras at the Parks and Recreation facilities, and finally, funding for a marketing plan coming out of the Economic Development Division of the Community Development Department. Are there any questions about those new initiatives? Moving on to our capital improvement plan, just wanted to quickly go back over the pay-as-you-go funding requests. So here is a summary of all the pay-as-you-go funding requests for the next 7 years. We spoke about changes from the prior year plan, including the software upgrades for the finance department, including some of the items for information services that were previously budgeted for in the general fund that we're now going to be planning on a long-term basis as they are capital assets in the capital projects fund. We have the vehicle replacement reserve for police staying the same. We talked about the fire department's vehicles coming in higher than we've seen in the past and asking for us increase there. Primarily, most other things staying the same. We have Public Works with some reduced requests based on utilizing T-SPLOST funding across some of that pavement repair and bridge replacement program. And then we have in Parks and Recreation, we were able also, from the feedback we received, to reduce the funding going into Providence Park, as well as the Milton City Park and Preserve for the active acres. And then we have finally there funding for the passive acres at Milton City Park and Preserve, as well as Birmingham Park, based on the feedback we received. And then finally, finishing out with community development for the gateway and wayfinding signage, and the vehicle replacement reserve has not had any changes for this year. The final new piece of information staff has put together is this new T-SPLOST 2 funding chart. We have gone to a program of budgeting based on the category that was approved in the referendum. And so we also wanted to show you how that category broke down over each project. So this just gives you an idea of where the FY23 funding went and where the proposed funding for 24 through 2030 is going. As you know, the comprehensive transportation plan is underway, so we have a placeholder for the majority of the funds over the next few years in that account. And as those projects are approved by council, we'll come back before you and we'll allocate those funds over eligible projects. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and we'll be voting later this evening on the proposed budget.
Any questions?
No.
Thank you. Thanks, Bernadette.
All right, thank you. Is there any public comment, or you still going? No, we're good. All right,
I'm not
any
going.
public
I'm
comment?
done. There are none, sir.
Okay, so close the public hearing. Any council discussion? None? Okay, we will move on to there's no zoning agenda, so we'll move on to unfinished business. Will the city clerk please say on the item?
The unfinished business is consideration of an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Milton, Georgia, to adopt amendments to the fiscal 2023 budget for each fund of the city of Milton, Georgia, amending the amounts shown in each budget as expenditures, amending the several items of revenue appropriations, prohibiting expenditures to exceed appropriations, and prohibiting expenditures to exceed actual funding available. Agenda item number 23239. Ms. Harville? On Wednesday, September 6th, staff presented a comprehensive overview of the requested council-approved amendments to the fiscal year 2023 budget. This budget was originally adopted on September 19th, 2022, and was initially amended on May 15th, 2023. The amendments up for consideration represent adjustments that will amend line items to carry out projections through the end of the fiscal year on September 30th, 2023. Before you is a general fund budget summary. As we went over everything in detail on the 6th, we will just go over the highlights tonight, but I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have about any of the details. This summary shows the proposed amended revenues for fiscal year 2023 at $42.5 million. This includes an overall increase of $1,965,451 in projected revenues being proposed, including a transfer in from the ARPA fund in the amount of $1 million associated with the market adjustment to salaries authorized in fiscal year 2023, which are eligible to be covered by this program. Those funds were reallocated for the purchase of a stock fire engine and equipment as part of the ladder tender concept deployment that Fire Chief Ben Musa presented and was approved by council in early July of this year. Other notable adjustments to revenues include an increase of $423,168 to local option sales tax and $150,000 to anticipated occupational taxes. Moving down to the expenditure summary, you will see a proposed amendment in the amount of $2,405,860 that will result in an overall expenditure budget of $45.3 million. 94% of this $2.4 million request is associated with a transfer out to the Capital Projects Fund to support the city's pay-as-you-go capital improvement plan, consisting of $71,650 from the sale of surplus vehicles back to the vehicle replacement reserve accounts for the corresponding departments. You can see a detailed distribution of this list in the Capital Projects Fund page. $1 million towards the planning, design, and construction of an indoor community center, location to be determined. $227,869 for the police department's migration to a new records management and ICAD system. $19,485 towards the installation of a gate to connect the fence at the employee parking entrance of the public safety complex. The total cost of this project is $65,000 and will be supported by contingency funding in the Capital Projects Fund for those additional funds. And finally, $951,330 for the purchase and equipping of the stock engine we just discussed earlier this evening. At the hearing, we also discussed staffing updates to remove any unfunded positions from the headcount, as well as the conversion of the crossing guard position in the police department to that of a public safety ambassador, which includes the request of an additional vehicle in the Capital Projects Fund amendments. If the amendments are approved as presented, the projected general fund balance will be $10,930,376, which puts the city in line with the fund balance requirements of 25% of the subsequent year's revenues. Any revenues which exceed this forecast and expenditures which come in under this projection will be taken into consideration for one-time projects in the budget amendment process for fiscal year 2024. Those are the general fund highlights, and they include any pay-go transfer details. Updates to the other funds represent independent funding sources, and I'll be happy to go over any of those amendments to the special revenue or capital projects funds if you have any questions about those.
Oh, we're done.
Yep.
Nice. Bernadette, I love hearing you. But I think after like the fifth time, it just kind of goes, you do a great job. All right.
I think we should say, Bernadette, for those who maybe tonight is the first night they're here, that this ain't our first movie with this. I mean, we have been through this ad nauseum.
Absolutely. I tried to list out a few of the things we talked about in the last one, but
Yeah,
yes, we've
no,
been
I
through a bunch.
appreciate it.
Great job as always. Any public comment?
There are none, sir.
Okay. Do we have any council discussion? Okay. May I have a motion?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve agenda item number 23239.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion from Councilmember Jacobus and a second from Councilmember Cookerly to approve agenda item number 23-239. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That's unanimous. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank
One
you.
more. Let's
Wait,
see,
one
clerk.
more.
And say one more.
One more.
One more.
Will the city clerk please say on the next item?
The next item is consideration of an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Milton, Georgia, to adopt the fiscal 2024 budget for each fund of the city of Milton, Georgia, appropriating the several items of revenue appropriations, prohibiting expenditures to exceed appropriations, and prohibiting expenditures to exceed actual funding available. Agenda item number 23240. Ms. Harville.
Thank you, Ms. Lillett. We just went over the second public hearing. As we discussed, we've been through several meetings preparing this budget. The proposed budget before you, I have the consolidated budget summary to show you all of the funds that we are requesting funding for. Should this be adopted, staff will then continue on to the additional supplementary information that will go into the formal budget book that will be available over the next 60 to 90 days for everyone to see and support all of the additional information that helps support where we've been this year.
Okay. Do we have any public comment on this?
We do not, sir.
Okay. Any council discussion? Okay. With that, I'll open it for a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Oh, please, go ahead.
Go for it.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve agenda item number 23-240.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion from Councilor Morgan, a second from Councilor Jacobus to approve agenda item number 23-240. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's unanimous.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Next is new business. Will the city clerk please say on the next item?
That
Thank you,
new business
Bernadette.
item.
Enjoy your vacation.
Here, that new business item is consideration of the letter of intent from Mr. Larry Chadwick for the donation of McConnell Chadwick Homestead. It is agenda item number 23254. Ms. Jackie Lim.
Thank you. Let me just pull up the presentation. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I'm here to present to you the McConnell Chadwick donation. The purpose of this presentation is to provide the council and the public with information regarding this donation. This presentation includes a brief history of the property as well as zoning information. I also have some photos to share about the existing conditions of the property. And lastly, I've outlined the next steps after the council approved the donor's letter of intent. Mr. Chadwick has been generous enough to donate this historic property to the city. We met with Mr. Chadwick and members of the Milton Historical Society in July to discuss the donation and the city's involvement in the acquisition and restoration of the house. We appreciate their commitment to preserving this house and rescuing it from further ruin. The city of Milton recognized the McConnell Chadwick Homestead as a building having special and significant value, both historically and architecturally. So just a brief history. The house was built around the late 1830s by Brigadier General and State Senator McConnell and his wife, Sevilla Garrison. This house was one of the first in the original Cherokee County, established in December 1832. Governor Troup authorized McConnell to move into Indian Territory to aid in the relocation of the Cherokee from Georgia. Today, the state of Georgia has designated the McConnell Chadwick House as one of the places in peril for 2023, and it's a worthy recipient of historic preservation assistance. Here is some zoning information. The property address is 13705 Arnold Mill Road. This is a one-story Georgian cottage home with a Greek Revival architectural style. Further, the property sits on a 3.69 acre land and is currently zoned agricultural or AG1 and community business or C1. This historic building is located at the western doorstep of Milton. The house is adjacent to Cherokee County line along Highway 140 and has been a landmark to those commuting down the corridor. The property is also near the Chadwick landfill to the east. Next slide, just some pictures of existing conditions of the property. We have front, rear, and side elevations of the building. Here are photos of the facades. Some architectural elements include stone and wood foundation, metal roof, brick chimney, and fluted Doric columns. It's also double hang sash windows, clapboard siding, and a weatherboard well house. Mr. Chadwick and the Milton Historical Society have made every effort to slow deterioration through various measures such as brush and clearing, multiple roof repairs, and periodic or occasional structural reinforcement. Mayor and Council, with your approval of the donor's letter of intent tonight, the city will proceed with the due diligence phase to ensure that the property title, survey, and environmental assessment are clean. Here are the steps we will take during the due diligence process. Beginning with survey of the property prepared by a registered land surveyor in the state of Georgia. The purpose of this is to identify the exact size of the land to be donated. The survey also includes property lines, setbacks, easement, existing structures of the property, and others. Second is perform a title search to identify the legal owner of the property and identify if there are any restrictive covenants, easements, or boundary line agreements, among others. And lastly, we will conduct a full environmental assessment to ensure that the property is not contaminated with any toxic substances like asbestos, lead, and other toxic chemicals. Please note that the city will bear the cost of the survey, title search, and environmental site assessment. So after the due diligence stage has been completed, the city council will have to formally approve the acceptance of the donation at a public meeting. At this time, the city will also explore funding sources and preservation programs. One option is the revolving fund through Georgia Trust. Staff will explore this program and determine if this is a good fit for what we are planning to do with this structure or property. We will also conduct a community engagement session or sessions to allow the public for input gathering on the proposed use of the historic building. Many historic buildings can be adapted for new use without seriously impacting their historic character. Lastly, the city will explore appropriate preservation or restoration treatments to stabilize the building and restore the exterior and interior parts of the historic site. There is flexibility as far as the type of use and the restoration treatment to be applied. The only restriction is that we maintain it, keep the house standing, and give the place the importance it deserves. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions for staff.
Thank you, Jackie. I think we have some public comment for this, don't we?
We do, Mayor.
Okay, we'll call first public comment.
I'd like to invite Joan Borzilleri to the podium, please. Thank you. I had some help.
My name is Joan Borzilleri. I live at 540 Kings County Court, Milton, Georgia. I'm speaking tonight as a private citizen, but I'm a member of the Chadwick House Preservation Committee and the Secretary of the Milton Historical Society. I'd like to express my heartfelt thanks to Mayor Jamison, city staff, and city council for your support of local historic preservation efforts and the McConnell Chadwick House in particular. Owner Larry Chadwick has been supportive of our efforts from the beginning and has been exceptionally generous in his offer to donate the house and some acreage to the city. A preservation precedent was set some years ago with the city's purchase of the Thomas Bird House and its rehabilitation. It's now, as you know, repurposed as a senior center. In applying to the Georgia Trust Places in Peril program, we learned that they consider a few crucial points: the age and condition of the house, architectural significance, historical significance, and especially community support, which we've been trying to do through an educational effort with our communications and talking to other historical society presidents, et cetera. Ben Sutton, the Trust's preservation director, said that houses are selected for the program only if the selection committee thinks there is a good chance of success with the restoration efforts. Also, rehabilitation grants are easier to obtain if the property is owned by a municipality or a nonprofit organization. A small group of us are currently working on the initial application for the National Register of Historic Places for the house. This includes Bob Gamble, our architectural historian, who's been working with us for 2 or 3 years, Pat Miller, president of the Alpharetta and Old Milton County Historical Society, Bill Lusk, and myself. If approved, this would be a first for a structure in Milton. On the Places in Peril application, we cited possible uses for the house. And looking at the pictures, this is kind of a reach, but we can get there. It could be a Milton Welcome Center or a community center. It could be an office for a potential park on the property. People aren't using the term museum much anymore. It's turned into an interpretive center. This could be used for teaching early pioneer life in the area, Cherokee heritage. It could be used as a Trail of Tears witness structure. It could tell the story of the Georgia land lotteries and the removal process. It also would make a nice cornerstone of a heritage village. At the point that we applied for the Places in Peril, we thought that it would be appropriate for commercial leasing as well. The whole effort to save the house has been aspirational on our part and an education for our committee. Thank you for your attention. Are there any questions?
Thank you. We'll ask some questions if we have some later. Thank you.
Very good.
Do we have any other
Thank you.
public comment?
Yes, sir. I invite Mr. Jeff Dufresne to the podium, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members of the City Council. I'm Jeff Dufresne, living at 1380 Summit Road. I'm a private citizen, but also president of the Milton Historical Society. So at issue tonight is to save a 183-year-old Greek Revival house with good bones, as they say in the business, from destruction. As Joan said, the McConnell-Chadwick House is located at a gateway to the city with historical significance. The places we choose to save or not save define our city's identity. Old places give us an understanding of our history that no books or documents can possibly do. Destruction of old places is tantamount to the destruction of a city's historic identity. Milton is a blend of nature and history. Milton is a unique, small city surrounded by an increasingly urban world. Destroying our unique historic assets makes Milton increasingly any town USA. It is imperative that we protect our dwindling supply of historic buildings in order to save our history for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes public comment, Mayor.
Okay. Is there any council discussion? Councilmember Cookerly?
So serendipitously, I know Larry Chadwick and had the opportunity to work with him, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, and we kept loosely in touch. I had the opportunity to speak with him yesterday. He was aware of this tonight. His wife, Sandra, is not doing particularly well, so he is more homebound, but they are celebrating their 61st wedding anniversary this month. He's a wonderful man. All my dealings with him throughout my several year association with him in business were terrific. And I thanked him personally for this opportunity. And he is really thrilled that if you agree to accept this, he would be thrilled to have it under our jurisdiction. So it was a very nice conversation. I thought I'd share that with you. Very special man.
Thank you. And I will say, when I met with Jeff and Joan, Carl and Bill, and had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Chadwick, I went into that meeting not thinking he was going to be donating the property. I was wondering how much he was going to want for it. So that is a very generous
Very
person.
generous.
Jackie, thanks for, taking the lead on this and moving it over the finish line. So appreciate it, everybody. Okay, with that, I'll open it for a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we accept the letter of intent from Mr. Larry Chadwick for the donation of the McConnell Chadwick homestead.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Moore and a second from Councilmember Moore to approve agenda item number 23-254. Any council discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Point of order on that one very quickly. I will say this will commence the due diligence, and if that is deemed acceptable by the council, we will be bringing an actual formal acceptance of the donation in addition to that. I just didn't want you to think this was the final act. We still need to accept it formally once we've protected everyone and then. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, any council reports?
Yes.
Councilman Jacobus?
Yeah, I just wanted to say there's been a lot of discussion about the elections and so forth, but a majority of the citizens I've talked to are still very proud of the fact that we're running our own elections. They think it's great and they're very proud of it. And they're also very confident they're going to be fair. And I think that's important that there is, the people I've been talking to, they're very confident that their vote will count and that we'll have a good and true election. And I think that goes to Steve and the majority of those folks working on it from city staff. So thank you.
Councilman Cookerly?
I had the pleasure yesterday of going to the Milton Historical. I almost said hysterical. Don't say hysterical. Milton Historical Society event. Let's see, yesterday. Seems like it was longer, and it was a great event. And I was thrilled because I've had a couple of, times when I've tried to go and haven't been able to get there, and certainly during COVID we got shut down. But it was a learning experience. I did not expect to go and meet with a young lady who had fossils from the Appalachian Plateau. And the things I saw and the things I learned were really exceptional. And so what you might think of as the Milton Historical Society is so much more. Certainly what was reinforced yesterday. So we are going to get very involved, and I hope you will too.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, with that, we'll take a motion to adjourn into executive session to discuss personnel, land acquisition, and potential litigation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilor Morg and a second from Councilor Moore. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We good? Thank you.